We will call the council meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Alms.
Here.
DeZiel.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Atkins Hoggett.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right. Move into comments and suggestions from citizens. Once again, we have, because of requests coming from council members and other areas, we have made the decision that we're only taking comments from residents of the city, business owners, people, businesses that are leasing in the city, unless we have an issue that ancillarily affects the surrounding areas, such as annexation or things like that. So this is your opportunity to make comments on anything that you'd like to comment on, other than things that are on the agenda, at which time you would have an opportunity to speak when it comes up on the agenda. So a couple reminders. First, we can't see you. I don't have a full screen of everybody that's here. So you would have to just pop right on in, just chime in whenever you're ready. And please unmute if you have a comment that you'd like to make. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment? Anyone who would like to make a comment?
Hi, this is Celeste Corporal. Could I make a comment?
Celeste, I don't believe that you live in the city.
I live 2 doors outside, and this is a comment on a matter that affects everyone, and it also affects what I do in the city.
Celeste, Celeste, please, we've set the parameters, and it's for everybody that's tuned in. There are a lot of people that are not happy about this.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me who said that.
Okay. All right. So anyway, is there any resident who would like to make a comment?
I would like to make a comment. I do live in the city of Hudson. My name is Kelsey Janetski. My address is 512 4th Street, Hudson, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I wanted to speak in support of the Safer at Hudson ordinance. I don't know if we're taking comments on that today.
That is, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
So comments on agenda items, you'd have to wait for that item to come up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Is there anybody else? Any other comments? Any other comments?
I'm sorry,
Pardon me?
Rich?
Yep.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just joined on. I missed what you just said. Could you repeat that for me?
We're not taking comments from anybody that does not live in the city, does not have a business in the city or own property in the city. And we're not taking comments at this time from anybody that for an item that's on the agenda. A comment that has to do with an item that's on the agenda, please wait until that agenda item comes up.
Okay. All right. Even people who do business, who have their livelihood is in Hudson.
That's right.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Do you live in the city?
I am Kristen Emerson. I live at 918 Green Street.
Okay.
Could I, sorry, my dog is barking. Could I defer my comment to Celeste?
No, you may not.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments? Any other comments?
I'd like to make a comment. Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Beth Weiskopf. I live at 2408 Donegal Way in the city of Hudson. And I would like to add a resolution to the next agenda against the St. Croix County Communicable Disease Ordinance for the city of Hudson, that the city would choose to not adopt that if it were to pass. I would also like to make a note to allow citizens from the area of Hudson to have a voice in these meetings when a lot of them do. I understand and respect your view, but a lot of them do a lot of business in the city of Hudson, and so this does affect them. Those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Amen.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we will close this portion of the agenda and we will take the first comment under advisement. All right, consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from October 5th, 2020 regular council meeting and the October 8th, 2020 special council meeting. Approve the claims in the amount of $801,051.95. Approve tax collection agreement with St. Croix County. Approve purchase of Laserfish software and service agreement with CDI. Reject the bids received for Burton Park resurfacing project. Approve the memorandum of understanding with the Hudson Chamber of Commerce for the use of Lakefront Park beginning November 1st, 2020 to February 1st, 2021 for the Buena Vista Stroll Lighting in the Park event. Approval of the 3-year lease agreement, January 1, 2021 through January 1, 2024 with the St. Croix Sailing School for use of land space at Outlot 214 at Buckeye Street in Hudson. Approval of the 1-year lease agreement with St. Croix Sailing School for use of garage space at 18 Buckeye Street in Hudson. And approve the Hudson Chamber of Commerce Light Up Night Celebration in Lakefront Park on Friday, November 27th, 2020.
Could we pull that item, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
and Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Consent agenda is approved. Go back to the last item, number, was it I? Jim?
Yes. I guess in trying to read both memorandum of understanding and this one, trying to determine how they are in compliance with our expectations for the use of that park relative to COVID. And it felt it was vague at best. So I don't know if that's I want to make sure that that's being addressed.
So let me make sure I'm on here. Okay, so we do have that addendum to all of our use agreements. So they know what all the expectations are and what they have to do, what the requirements are. I mean, basically this is just on there because it's a big event. So we get the council to sign off on the big events like this one, but they do know what our addendum says, what they're required to do, and they will be in compliance with it.
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Yes, I'm good.
You want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Second.
Motion second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion of possible action on the Safe Hudson Initiative.
Yep. So I basically followed the direction of the council 2 weeks ago where there was a lot of feedback about the initial draft that I had put forward. And I really just want to say I listened very well. And I tried to basically come up with a little bit more balanced approach that we could hopefully all get together on. I did also bring this to the task force, the Hudson Task Force that has been meeting via Zoom. And there was some good conversation and in general support for this. So there was a lot of folks in the business community that thought this might be a good way to educate residents, and also just to encourage voluntary safety measures. So this is basically not, just to be clear with the public, this is not a mandatory thing. This is not an ordinance. This is simply an initiative where the city would write letters to local businesses and encourage them to comply with CDC guidelines for things like hand washing, social distancing, and wearing masks. And it's more like a survey or an inventory where businesses could then reply to the city and say, kind of, here's our plan for when the governor's mask mandate is scheduled to end, which is November 21st, I believe. So the city would take that information from all businesses who responded, regardless of how they responded, and then we would post that on our website as sort of a public clearinghouse, where it would basically just provide information. So folks would be able to say, hey, I want to wear a mask. I want to go to this business because they're requiring it. Hey, I don't want to wear a mask. I'm going to go to this business because they're not requiring it, and other safety measures as well. So it's I think it's a twofold purpose, really. The first is, I think the city just voluntarily asking folks to think about safety and trying to say, this is important stuff. Let's try to think about it, encouraging them voluntarily again. And then the second thing is the city would just act as a public clearinghouse, basically, where a lot folks, consumers, residents could get really quality, accurate information about what businesses across our city are doing. So I just think it's a win-win for the city. I think it's a win-win for the businesses. I think it's a win-win for the public. So here to listen to your comments, council members, if there's things that concern you. I would like to, again, we don't necessarily have to take a vote on this tonight unless you think like it's in good shape. I'm good going forward with that. But I want to make sure that we can get all on the same page, because part of it is also the divisiveness in the community that we've seen. I think we have to do something. And I think it's important that the city come together to do something. So I'm not comfortable with doing nothing. And this is my second attempt at trying to do something. So with that said, I'll sit back and listen to your thoughts.
Paul, like I said last time, I think your intentions are well placed, but I think that what you're doing is helping the division in the community by bringing this up, because you're shaming one or the other business by putting it on a list. The city shouldn't get involved with any of that. If it's voluntary letter, fine, but we shouldn't be in the business of putting businesses yay or nay, or however you want to word it, online. It's not our business. They have their websites. They can do how they see fit. So I don't support it. And just an overreach, in my opinion.
I think the main change that I saw was in item 3 is that the businesses have the opportunity to respond to a survey and talk about how they are, what their safety practices are. And I think that's a whole different shift. We're no longer saying these are the requirements. We're saying it becomes then a forum, one place where businesses can talk about what they do or make that public. So that's I thought was a nice shift, Paul. It allows the opportunity for that kind of information, but it doesn't require, and we're no longer in the business of saying check or no check.
Exactly. Thanks, Jim.
I'd like to ask Mary Claire Potter whether the chamber discussed this.
Mary Claire, are you there?
I am. Good evening. Just as a follow-up to my comment at the last meeting, the chamber is not we support all businesses. We are here to be sure that they can.
It's just audio.
Sorry?
No, keep going, Mary Claire.
Okay, my apologies. We are here to support all businesses, so we will continue to do that, and this is not an initiative that the chamber will take on.
Is it an initiative that the chamber is supportive of? We are here to support all businesses. We are not here to
to say businesses that are doing things right or doing things wrong. It is up to each individual business. They know the guidelines that they need to follow.
Anybody else?
I guess I'll speak to this. Thanks, Paul, for continuing to move this forward. I too feel that we would be negligent to do nothing, and that I see this as something that benefits everyone. The businesses want as many of us as possible to go out and about and frequent their shops and their office offerings, their services. And, this is a way that every person who wants to go out and about can look up in advance and kind of know, what to expect in the places that they want to visit. They're either someone who wants to be extra cautious and wear a mask at all times, then they can easily see a list in one place of the shops that they'd want to go to. And if they are folks that are...
I think you're muted, Sarah.
Sorry about that, folks. I didn't know I was muted. So I want to thank Paul for his work.
No, it was just the last sentence or two that was muted.
Oh, okay. I don't know how it got muted. That's weird because I wasn't touching my computer. Anyway, I don't think it shames anyone because we're not saying what's right and what's wrong. It's just simply informing the shoppers, I'll call them shoppers and people who want to go out and about. It's informing those people of the places that they want to go. And I think it's a real benefit to both sides of the mask coin. So I'm going to be supportive of this.
I had a couple of questions. First, on the second line, was it your intent, Paul, that it would be one specific poster and sort of different checkoffs for the businesses to sort of check off what they are doing? Or is this multiple things that need to be developed?
Well, I think my thought was that the city staff, if this was approved, the city staff would come up with some of those details. But my thought as a potential consumer is it's easy to, I think it's easiest if there's some kind of uniform poster and you walk in and you kind of see the expectations. You kind of know where to look for different things. So I was thinking maybe like to check off or something, but I don't have a design for it because I really thought city staff would be able to kind of work that out, the details.
Well, the chamber has a poster already.
Yep, and that could be a helpful resource. What I'm hearing is they don't want to do this as a clearinghouse for the whole city, and they're not in a real good position to do that, where I think we as a city are just in a much better position to do this. Did you have another question, though, Bill?
Yeah, I guess it was just on a city staff end. So I guess more of a question for Aaron, and to your point, Paul, seeing that city staff would take an active role. Just curious what we're asking of our city staff on this specifically. Are you looking for them to wholly create it, Paul, and sort of come back to this council for approval on design? You know what I mean? Like what does that process look like?
I'm just real open, Bill. I'm looking for the big picture in terms of just getting us to agreement that this would be a great way to share information in community. But I'm very open to suggestions for what that poster would look like. If you had ideas or other council people or city staff, I don't have a vision of this is what it looks like. It's more just strictly informational. I don't know if that helps.
I think maybe it can be very, very simple and one poster can fit everybody. It can just have a cute little logo of some sort, graphic, I guess, and then just say, this business participated in the Safer Hudson initiative. See the city website for our list of, for the information of how we answered. It doesn't need to be, we require, each of these shop owners, in my opinion, can make up their own poster for their window, what they're requiring. Because they might not all be the same. You know, one might say, we allow 8 people in the store, please use your hand sanitizer before you come in. One might just say, we allow 12 people. I mean, they're not, it can't be so, it should be something that can be just one poster for everybody. And so those, how they're handling their own store should be up to them and put it in the window. But just a sticker or poster that says, this business participated in a Safer Hudson Initiative survey. See the results at the City of Hudson website. Real simple.
Catherine, I have a question for you. Is there any legal precedence for a city to get in the middle of commerce like this?
You're muted, Kathy.
Okay, yep, I'm working on it. I don't know that there's, well, I mean, we're in kind of charting new territory these days. I do think actually we've had various weekly actually municipal attorney phone calls regarding COVID issues. And I do think some cities have participated in promotion and educating people within their community on various practices. So I don't think Hudson's the only one doing it. I think every city or the cities that are doing this just design their own type of program, but I think other cities are doing something similar. I don't know if they're doing specific to businesses. I really don't know. I haven't heard that, but I've heard them getting involved in just informing people regarding COVID issues.
Thanks.
I'd move to approve the Safer Hudson Initiative as it's written.
Second.
Can a citizen make a comment?
Yes, as long as you're a resident.
I am. So this is Beth Weiskopf again, 2408 Donegal Way, Hudson, Wisconsin. And first, I'd like to say that I do oppose the Safer Initiative. I agree with Randy. I think this just continues the division in the city. You might see it as everybody can go and look and see which places they want to visit, but you're still having a poster that people can put in their window, and then some may not have it. It's still a good, bad list, depending on whose eyes you're looking at. And also, I'd like to know who's paying for all this. Is this the taxpayers' money? If it is, then shouldn't there be a vote on this? I don't want to spend my money for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to make a comment then if we're taking citizen comments. If that's
Okay.
okay.
Kelsey, is that you?
Yes, it is. 512
And
4th Street.
your address again?
512 4th Street, Hudson, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I'm in support of the Safer Hudson Initiative. I believe information's power. Displaying what businesses are doing so that residents can make their own choices about where they want to go is important. We're all aware that conversation has been already happening on social media about what different businesses are and are not doing, and it's creating divisiveness, as we've already heard. I think one place where we can find as much information as possible, as quickly as possible, is really, really important. And this is a neutral area to find it on the city website. Businesses would be providing their own information where they would get to choose how and what to represent what they're doing in a uniform way. I would recommend putting a QR code on the poster where someone could scan with their cell phone right in front and find the website themselves so they could read for themselves. Posters are actually relatively cheap. So in terms of cost, I would happily help to fund this with my taxpayer dollars. I think there are plenty of other wasteful things that we've seen our city do. So I don't have a problem with this, and I'm in full support.
I would really like to see the poster and what the addition to the website would look like before voting on this. So I'm not ready to vote on this.
I'll kind of echo that response, Joyce. I really, really, really like the idea of number 3. I really like the survey on the, having businesses fill that out, and sort of, back to my comments in the last one was just, having some sort of legend or key or something for our residents to see what different businesses are doing. But I kind of shy away from 2 unless that we have a little bit of a visual of that.
Well, my thought is maybe we just drop the poster then. Let's just not do the poster. Let's do the survey and post the results on the website so people have that clearinghouse. The most important thing is the information from my point of view, and encouraging people. The city's encouraging, but it's mainly just the public having a place to go to as a clearinghouse for information after the governor's order expires. That's really what I'm looking for. So I would be, if Sarah would be open to this, I would be open to amending your motion just to just drop number 2, to just drop the poster part and do the first and third part.
I guess since we're not in a hurry on this, I'd rather sleep on that. I think the poster is important. I think that QR code idea is a good one. And a very simple poster. I bet we could even find someone who would donate their time to design that, so it's not a taxpayer issue. But let's. I guess I would table my motion for 2 weeks while we are given time to think about that poster.
I think the important thing is.
Question.
Pardon?
I'd like to ask a question.
Oh, excuse me.
Could you please put?
I'm sorry. Could you identify yourself? Give your address, please.
Yep, Jen Flanders, 265 320th Street. Could you tell me why you won't allow out of the city
is that in the city?
No, it's not. Can you tell me why you won't allow us to talk?
This is just for.
I'd like to address that as well, please. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Michele Denison at 608 Grange Road, and I take exception to the fact that you're not allowing people who are not in the city limits to speak. I'm in the town of Hudson.
We're not, I'm sorry, we're not allowing comments from people outside of the city.
Your businesses depend on our money.
I think getting back to the topic, that the concept is good, and we should move ahead on voting on the concept tonight, and then work out the details of the implementation later. I think it's important to show let's move ahead and show the support, and then work out the details of the poster. I like the poster. I think we've made it more neutral. And then we've created an avenue for businesses to say how they are supporting a safer Hudson. So I would make the motion then to approve, or do, am I out of order here? Is Sarah's motion somewhere?
Sarah, I believe, has withdrawn her second, which leaves us with, Paul, did you withdraw your motion?
It's actually Sarah's motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I actually tabled it, but I withdrew.
Okay. All right. So a motion, if you wanted to make a motion.
I would make the motion that we approve, what are we calling it? Safer Hudson initiative as it stands, and then support the staff in going ahead and designing this. I would rather not have the concept of this thing depend on what the poster looks like. We're either going to do it or we're not, and then let's figure out the right way to do it after that. So that's my thinking. And I started selling my motion. My motion is to approve the Safer Hudson initiative as written, and that we encourage that we support the staff in finding the proper way and proper look for the poster.
This is Beth Weiskopf again, City of Hudson. I would just like to reiterate.
Beth, we've got a motion on the table right now. We don't have a second yet.
I would second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Go ahead, Beth.
I would just like to reiterate what Randy said about websites. most businesses, not all of them, but most businesses have a website where they can post what they want their customers to know about them. They post their hours, they post their phone number, they post their address. They can post what they're doing that they choose to do to keep their customers, safe, whatever they want to do. And like Sarah said, every business is going to be different. Why is the city choosing to, again, put one business in front of the other? Stay out of it and let the businesses do their own. They can make their own poster and put it in their window. They can put it on their website. I don't think that this should go on the city's website when it just causes the angst that it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Very good comment.
So I'll comment. Can I speak, please?
Who is it?
Again, my name is Kristen Emerson, 918 Green Street. First of all, I'd like to say I really don't understand why you're not allowing some of these comments and cutting people off that are business, that
we have a motion on the floor.
I think it is of utmost importance that you're keeping Hudson citizens safe. And I witnessed things firsthand this weekend that were incredibly scary as far as transmission of this, of COVID, and just absolute lack of concern and dangerous behavior out in public around vulnerable people, elderly, children, people with underlying conditions, and just people. And it's not safe, and there needs to be some sort of message here that this is not okay. And it's got to start with you guys. You've got to keep our community safer than it is right now.
Thank you.
I completely agree. I think we look to our government.
Kelsey, again, you need to identify yourself anytime you speak.
Oh, I'm very sorry. My name is Kelsey Janetski, 512 4th Street, Hudson, Wisconsin. I expect my elected officials to stand for the best of our citizens, and I look to you to make decisions for the betterment of everyone. Every disaster movie starts with the government ignoring a scientist, and I would hope that that doesn't happen in Hudson. I know it sounds like a joke, but that is kind of the situation we're in too, and I hope that our elected officials make the best choice for our entire city.
All right, I guess I'd like to just reinforce that I really don't see this as shaming any particular business over another business. It simply informs the people who want to go down shopping. It informs them of the places that they're going to want to go because of their own personal comfort level. And it gets all of us out, all of us more free to have the ability and the assuredness that it will be safe to go out to my or that individual's particular level of concern when it comes to COVID. So I think it's a way that more people will get out and about with their comfort, having the list. Of course, stores will post it on their own website as well, but this is just encouraging people to just go to the list, write down your list of all the stores you want to frequent in one fell swoop. No hunting around, no having to go to multiple websites and choosing your route. You can just go to one place and look up the list and know where you're going to feel comfortable. I think it's encouraging us to get out and do our shopping and shop local. So I'm going to reaffirm that it's not about shaming anyone. It's not a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It simply informs our shoppers where they're going to feel the most comfort and freedom.
Again, I don't support this because it's just, we should not be in the business of doing divisional good and bad. And that's what this is coming down to. Shame on us.
I think we should be in the business of making our city as safe as possible. And we do have some businesses that are not supporting any of the safety things that have been proposed or edicted or mandated. So I think we need to say it's out there. Fill out the survey, tell us what you're doing, tell the citizens what you're doing, don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. But I think the city needs to come down on the side of safety, and it's about time we did it.
You know, I understand what you're trying to do, Paul, Sarah, Jim. I get it. My biggest concern right now is that we've been talking about this for how long? How many meetings now? 3? And has anybody bothered to go out to the businesses and ask them what they think? I mean, Joyce, you've asked Mary Claire, who represents, if they want to participate in this, but has anybody actually gone out and surveyed the businesses to see what they think about this? This is us getting involved with the businesses in our community and with good intentions. But I mean, in all this time, it would have been very easy to go out and survey our local businesses. And perhaps that's something that the chamber would do. Certainly they can do that, and just ask them, here's the proposal. What do you think? So right now we do have until November 21st before the mask ordinance edict rather is lifted. But we've got time, and I think that we need participation on the part of the people that you're going to be imposing this on, and we don't know what they think. We have no idea.
Well, I can answer part of that, Mr. Mayor, because I have talked to some businesses, and I've
but how about all of them?
Well, I'm a full-time teacher with 4 kids and 2 jobs, so no, I'm not going door to door on this.
Okay.
But I can tell you from my Zoom meetings, is both the task force that I worked with Mary Claire on, as well as the business recovery task force that I've been a part on. They like it. There's really I don't see a downside to this. I just really don't. The intent is for the city to partner with all businesses to educate the public about their safety measures. That's it. That's it. I would agree with Randy that 2 weeks ago it was probably government overreach. Randy, I heard you at that meeting. But I would challenge you to read the proposal as is now, because it's a very different proposal. And so I would say this helps all businesses. And does government want to stimulate business in Hudson? I do. I want to support our businesses that have gone through very difficult times with the shutdowns this spring. And this simply is a way that we can stand up to the plate and say, we're willing to help you on our website. We're willing to help customers connect with you. I know folks in Minnesota, some of my family and friends, they won't come to Hudson when that November 21st date is lifted unless they know there's businesses that are participating and how they're participating. I know other folks on the other side of it. They don't want to shop at places where they're uncomfortable. So I think Sarah's point is well taken. This simply provides people information for them to make their own choices. In my opinion, that's really good government. That's not government overreach. That's government responding to the needs of its citizens in the biggest pandemic in 100 years. So I just think it's good to move forward.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
4-2, is that right? Okay, motion's approved. Discussion possible action on ordinance 16-20 amendments to municipal sign code chapter 202-6 sub C sub 7 and 202-6 sub E.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm not going to belabor this. Obviously, we've had a lot of discussion tonight, and everybody's familiar with what we're talking about here. And this is the message board reader type signage in public zoning districts. So what this amendment does is it provides an avenue for which any property in the city that's zoned public. So what that would mean would be all the city-owned properties, county, and school would have the ability to go and apply for a conditional use permit for an electronic message display. A few things that are a little different from when we had the public hearing on this issue on October 17th is you're going to see a significant amount more of criteria upon which the conditional use permit would be reviewed by. So we're talking about lighting, dusk till dawn standards, some operational limitations. You're talking about impacts to character and aesthetics of the neighborhood and community, a mitigation plan, and a number of other things. So that's where the ordinance is now. You will also note that on September 17th, the high school put out an example of what this type of signage would look like. I hope a lot of you were able to go look at what that was or what that looked like, and some pictures are included in your packet. So with that, you look at it, the Plan Commission has spent a number of meetings discussing this issue, debating this issue, taking comment from the public. I know there's a number of interested parties in this draft ordinance, but Plan Commission recommends approval, noting that each proposed sign in a publicly zoned district is going to be reviewed for appropriateness of location and design. With that, I'll answer any questions.
So Mike, just a question on if the ordinance passes, you're saying each new sign would have to go through council approval, is that correct?
So you would have a public hearing at Plan Commission, and then you'd also have council approval. Before they could make application, they would also have to hold a neighborhood meeting with everybody within 300 feet of the proposed signage.
Anybody else?
What would the remedy be if the sign did not follow the dusk to dawn recommendations and stays lit?
So all conditional use permits, that's a good question, are subject to review annually. Generally, we set up an annual review. Sometimes we've done a 6-month review on some of the more touchy conditional use permits out there or applications we've received. But if they don't follow, we have every authority. If they aren't meeting their criteria within what we've established in their conditions of the conditional use permit, we could rescind that permit.
Joyce, did you have a specific example in mind?
Well, I know, you know, okay, so for example, the Valley Cartage sign downtown, I know that there are complaints about that being too bright all the time, and I don't know whether they're conforming or not, and that this isn't about that. But I'm hearing from the neighbors of the high school that they're concerned about having this sign at the high school, shining in their window, and one of the neighbors said, they said that they weren't going to have lights on all over the building at night, and the place is lit up all the time and all night long, and they're not happy about that. So that was my concern, was what if the high school didn't follow the procedures if we approved the high school one in the first place, because there's a lot of pushback on that one in particular.
Well, and I think that's a great point, Joyce, is that the devil's in the details on some of these, right? Not all publicly zoned properties are created the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
City Hall's reality is different than the high schools, or Rivercrest is different than, Lakefront Park, but there has obviously been discussion in the past and some desire to, especially as we're talking about the pandemic and other issues, is that it is important to get public messaging out there, right? Now, how we do that appropriately, with the way this ordinance set up is that, Plan Commission's got its work cut out for it, for them. There's going to be we can't necessarily say, it's a 10 square foot message board, because if it's a property that's 50 acres or 20 acres and it's set back so far, you're never gonna be able to see it, right? So we've tried to create language in this ordinance that does its best to protect the interests and the aesthetic of the neighborhood and the surrounding areas. But again, that's also part of the process, is that the Plan Commission and the Common Council have the authority and the ability to approve and deny after review and comment from the public. Moreover, you also have a situation where, and Kathy, I'm sure you'll nod your head on this, and every criteria that we establish on conditional use permits, they need to be reasonable and measurable, right? So whatever criteria or conditions we place on these conditional use permits, we have to make sure that we're being reasonable, and it has to be based in some way to measure the impact of whatever it is that we're recommending or approving. So I think there are some checks and balances, but again, the question that I'd ask the council and I ask the Plan Commission is if you think this is a good idea, then this is an ordinance that we feel good about as far as staff and the ability to review and have a significant amount of public comment and input. But if it's not something, if we think it's just not worth it, then let's just move on.
Can I make a comment, please, on the language of the ordinance?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the intent is to have every electronic message sign only allowed with a conditional use permit. I'm looking at sub 4, and that references just electronic message display sign, or if they exceed the 30 square feet, that may be approved by conditional use permit. So the way that's written, it implies that if it's within the 30 square feet,
correct,
and meet the criteria, there is no conditional use permit process. The conditional use in the public district, the only conditional use process is for if they're exceeding 30 feet. So I don't want people, if the intent is to require a conditional use permit for every sign, we need to change the language on that ordinance, I think.
Correct. I think that was the intent, Kathy. Yes,
Okay.
I think it got mixed up in the last draft. So yes, that is the intent, that every electronic message display would have a conditional use permit.
Okay, then we do need to change the language to that.
Thank you. That'd be
clearly.
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion second to suspend the rules. Roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance
With Kathy's changes,
with contingent on changes. What's the number on the ordinance?
30 square feet. So all electronic message board signs would require a conditional use permit.
Yeah.
No, I think we're asking what the ordinance number is, Becky.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, 16, it's 16-20.
That's my motion. Contingent.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion.
Yeah, I would like to understand what 5,000 nits looks like versus 500 nits.
Okay.
It's a lot more lice.
Got that. But how would we see an example of each of those? I have no idea how nits are measured and what they are.
Sure. So to do that, we would have to go on a field trip. Right.
Mm-hmm.
She asked, she can go on that.
Right.
If you actually Google knit comparison or whatever, you can see some websites that do kind of show you what the differences look like.
Okay.
So you can kind of get an idea at least of
Joyce,
how it looks.
This is Brian Watson, IT department head. Your average iPhone, like the iPhone X, puts out about 800 nits.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have an iPhone or what, but the average iPhone will put out between 700 to 900 nits, if that helps.
Okay. And are nits measured across the entire sign then, or are they? I don't even know what a nit is. I mean, except for the kind that you get when you got lice.
Right. Yep, and we had, our lighting engineer from SEH looked at it. This language came specifically from right out of Bloomington, Minnesota's ordinance tank language and they're one of the more restrictive communities. But I think, Brian, or I know Brian is right. We talked about, you can look at your laptop screen generally, and that was kind of in line. But then it's hard to put your laptop screen out in the, depending on the size. It's not something that I can just say, hey, here's a picture of what this looks like, because you almost have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the one I'm looking at, so it says, the one I'm reading right now, it says you need an LED screen producing something more than 5,000 nits to appear luminous when it is in bright sunlight. And it says a quality LED sign can produce 10,000 nits or more. So just to give you an idea, you have to have at least 5,000 to be able to see it during the day.
And at night, since we all have seen the Valley Cartage signs, they have two, one's up on the 4th floor and then the one is on the ground. Mike, can you give me just like, how many nits is that at night?
I couldn't tell you,
Okay.
sir. I think that was more of a foot candle thing. We looked at light leakage on a foot candle basis. And now with the technology the way it is, more cities are moving towards the nit way of measuring things for leakage, not the foot candles. And it's a totally different type of light too. So
Okay, I have I'll vote in favor of this because I know you've been working hard and it is something we need. However, I do have valid concerns, I think, about how bright we're lighting things up in the middle of the night. It is very annoying, and being in District 5 here, I had a lot, oh my gosh, so many complaints about the Valley Cartage one. And so it's kind of tough for us because, like Joyce, I don't know what a nit is, or if it's, it's hard for me to say. And that would be my biggest concern on this whole ordinance, is the dusk to dawn brightness of these lights.
Sure.
I think also we can make sure when these do come forward that we somehow can give you a graphic example of what the nit output will be for the sign somehow. I think we should be able to figure that out. So when the planning commission's approving, they can say, here's what it will look like, and we can somehow get that comparison.
And here's your mitigation with their mitigation plan that they also have to provide. So, yeah.
Do we have any idea what the nit output of the sign, the demonstration sign at the high school was?
No, I don't have that. They just put it out there and said, this is an example of what we'd like to do. I didn't, I wasn't saying you need to meet our ordinance, because this ordinance wasn't about the high school. It was about public districts. Correct. Yeah.
Anybody else? Becky, I can't remember. Do we have a motion, a second on this? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action to approve resolution 20-20
Good evening, council. When we did our 2019 bonding, we received premiums. Premiums can only be applied towards interest for those actual bonds and notes. So when we applied that interest for 2020, it left us extra debt revenue that we had collected when we had done our levy. So now we are looking to take that money and actually apply it to other outstanding debt, so that it is actually being applied to debt as we said it would be.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion and second to suspend the rules. Roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
Zeal,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
and Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to approve the resolution for prepayment on redemption of the portion of the outstanding gender obligation promissory note.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Discussion.
What's the resolution number?
2020.
Just wanted to point that out.
Oh, Becky had a laugh when she gave me that one.
What does that mean that we received a premium? Where did that money come from, and why was it
So-
due?
Well, when we go out for bonds or notes, it goes out for a bid, of essence for a bid. And when it came back, what we got, they were actually giving us more money than we were asking for. Gave us a little with a really good interest rate.
Okay.
But in Wisconsin, the requirements are that, as I learned with Sean, is the interest or premiums can only be used to pay for interest on those bonds and notes, which is different than Minnesota.
Yep.
So when we did our budgeting last year, we didn't account for those. So our debt, what we did for debt levy was actually higher by that amount than what we needed. So that's why we're looking at now taking that extra money, since we're using the premiums to pay for that interest, and actually paying down this other debt.
And that's at a higher interest rate than what we're getting this money at?
We have to use it for that. It's not that we can't keep that money and use it for something else. We have to put it towards something like this. So it's basically paying off other debt with it, but that's our requirement. It's not about necessarily better interest rate. We should keep it and do something else with it. We have to use it to pay for this. But I would assume the interest rates are probably of what we're paying off much higher than what it is that this amount is. Because as Allison said, we got a very competitive bid for this bond. Not only was the interest rate great, but because the bondholder wanted us to select their bid, they also gave us this premium. And so, but the short answer is yes, the debt that we're paying off is going to be a higher interest rate than what this is for sure.
Yeah, it's from 2013, and it'll cut a whole year off plus a little bit of payments. So it'll be retired sooner.
Anybody else? Okay. Again, I forgot. We do have a motion, a second?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on a development agreement amendment between the City of Hudson and Atwood Holdings LLC, Bella Rose.
Thanks again. Obviously, the council, you've seen a lot of progress being made.
You're breaking up, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So you've seen a lot of progress taking place at the Atwood development at the corner of Vine and Carmichael. The original development agreement always contemplated doing an amendment to incorporate the final construction drawings that were approved by engineering. So this agreement, amendment to the original agreement, incorporates those approved construction drawings. It also authorizes an additional 16 single-family homes to be constructed. If you remember, the original agreement provided for 4 single-family homes to be constructed prior to needing to have this amendment approved. There's a total of 43 single-family lots out there. This would, again, get us up to 20 total. It would also allow for the approval of 2 commercial building permits. Obviously, we also had one that was approved in the initial agreement, which is the bank that was previously approved. This would allow for 2 more. It also includes an updated construction schedule. Obviously, as construction happens, things and dates, depending upon weather and other conditions, change. So this incorporates an updated construction schedule that includes basically the majority of what needs to happen still is just Carmichael north of Vine. So it doesn't help when it's snowing out right now to get that work done. So we're kind of playing that one by ear right now, but that will need to take place. Whether it happens this fall or in the spring is to be determined. Although the agreement, this amendment does contemplate it happening yet this fall. And then the other thing is it also provides for a process by which the developer did apparently incur some additional expenses for the abandonment and the expansion of some of our sanitary sewer system. The lift station on Vine there. We don't know enough about that yet, so we want to review it, find out what that would look like. Doesn't commit us to anything. It just says, hey, within 60 days, we're going to talk about this again and determine. We still need to work with the utility as well as engineering to determine whether or not that's something that we want to entertain, whether it be none, some, or all of whatever those costs are. But we do need to talk about it. So this amendment also includes that language. Other than that, I'll entertain any questions, but staff recommends approval.
Mike, just a question about the packet. I didn't see the drawings in there, or were there supposed to be some visuals of it or something?
It's like 100 pages of construction drawings, so I have those available for you if you want them. It's got all the profiles of the streets and all those types of things. But yeah, those are the drawings that, you know, we designed Vine and Carmichael. The developer designed all of the internal stuff, so we have that all bundled together, and Dean has that. So. Yep.
So is it still the basic schema with the two sort of apartment complexes in the middle and then the housings around there and the businesses on Carmichael? Is it still basically the same schema is what I'm trying to get at?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion?
Move to
Motion
approve.
Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
No, go ahead. I'll second for you.
I motion to approve.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on the 2021 proposed budget.
Okay, I will try to share screen here again. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen now. We talked about the proposed budget at the Finance Committee last meeting, and they recommended on to the council for review and approval. Just note that tonight, basically what we're doing is kind of presenting to the whole council the proposed 2021 budget. On November 23rd, I believe, we'll actually have our public budget hearing. So the public will have a chance to weigh in on it. And then after that point, we'll be asking at that meeting for the council to officially approve the budget. So we're not asking for any approvals tonight, just any comments, questions, those sort of things. So basically with our 2021 proposed budget, we're coming in at a 0% tax levy increase for city operations and debt service payments. So basically the two things that we have control over as far as our expenses and debt levy, we're coming in at a 0% increase for our tax levy for that. What we're really looking at, kind of big picture with it, is that our expenditures for 2021 are going up about 0.5%, actually 0.61% is where our expenditures are going up. And really the big drivers of that is always with our budget or personnel. So we are including a 2% cost of living adjustment for employees. And then also we have a 5% increase in our health insurance costs, which compared to all of our neighboring cities is 10% or more less than what many are seeing. So we have a very competitive increase in our health insurance. So we're very happy with that. So but the reality is that while the property tax levy for operating is, or I shouldn't say our expenses for operating are going up 0.61%, the actual kind of total amount for what our levy would be for operating would go up 3.74% because we're seeing a reduction in revenues as well. So we really basically held the expenditures at zero, but there's not much we can do with the revenues considering everything that's going on right now. We want to be very conservative with those. So the big changes that you're seeing in the revenues for 2021 being proposed is that we're seeing almost $100,000 reduction in our building inspection revenues. While we hope that we see our strong construction continue into 2021, we want to be realistic that potentially we could see that drop. And then the other big one that we're seeing a change in, of course, is our interest. Right now, our investments are doing not much of anything. So we're seeing a fairly large reduction in our interest income for next year. Also, we have basically now almost closed out the EMS fund. We're not quite there, but we had generally transferred over about $33,000 from that fund to pay for the city's administrative costs and things like that for operating the EMS. So that'll be stopping next year because that's no longer in operations, and we've done a lot of closeout with it. And then another change from last year's budget to this one is in last year's budget, we did transfer over about $16,000 from our health insurance fund to help pay for our increase in our health insurance costs last year, but because this year our cost is so low, we don't need to do that transfer. So we're going to leave that funding in there for future years in case we do need it. So really the biggest difference though is where we're kind of seeing the savings come in is that our debt service levy is increasing by a little over 9%. And again, the city has kind of laid out a plan where we have debt that is rolling off every year or two. We see a pretty large debt service roll off. So we did have a fairly large debt service expire this year. So we won't have to levy for that next year. And then what we just talked about at the finance committee, as far as our next round of bonding, which would happen next year, wouldn't actually show up on the tax levy till 2022. And at that point, the way we have it set up is our debt levy would not change. So our debt levy that we have in this budget proposed for 2021 would remain the same when we actually have new debt levy being added in 2022, because we're seeing more debt continually roll off. So in 2021, we'll have a little bit more debt roll off. And so we'll be able to keep basically our debt levy flat moving forward, unless we decide to add projects or get more or levy for more debt. So I think, the kind of big picture with all this is the department heads knew going in that we had to come in at zero. They were fully aware of what's happening in our community, and we need to do what we can as a city to control what we can control, which is our tax levy. So the department has done an excellent job of coming in with basically a flat operating expenditure increase for next year. They cut where they needed to get things to balance the best as possible. We did work together as department heads to prioritize out, knowing that not every department can come in at a 0% levy increase. It's just not feasible. For public safety to come in at zero, they have to do a lot of cutting. For say parks to come in at zero, not so much. So our department has worked together to get us to that zero by making the cuts where we could and where we needed to, but overall still come in with an operating budget that's going to provide all the services the citizens expect, not cutting operations, not cutting services, but still coming in at the 0%. So now the biggest change that we're going to see though is that we're finalizing this year our reevaluation. So we did the city initiated a citywide reevaluation 3 years ago, and it's been a 3-year process, which is finally ending this year. And so if you remember last year, we came in with about a 3% tax levy increase, but people's taxes actually went up almost 5%. And that was because our equalized value and our assessed value were way out of line. We were about 20% under on our assessed versus our equalized. And because of that, you were seeing a higher tax levy increase because our assessed valuation was not keeping up with equalized. So this year, now that we'll have our assessed valuation basically in line with our equalized valuation, it's going to be about a 25% decrease in our total mill rate. And so I'll get to that in a little bit here, but it's definitely where we need to be. I mean, the state of Wisconsin requires us to have our assessed valuation as close as equalized as possible. And if we would not be finishing the full reeval this year, we'd be at about 75% assessed to equalized. And like you said, the state wants us to close to 100% as possible. So with that decrease in the mill rate, I'll kind of go to some of the next things here. Here's our kind of just our summary. So basically, what you're seeing is if you look at our operating expenditures went up $61,000 basically, or less than 1%. I discussed one of our bigger changes was that we're seeing a $133,000 reduction in our non-tax revenues. And then we're also seeing about a $50,000 reduction in transfers in from other funds. But overall, that would say, if we didn't have our debt change, our overall property tax levy for operations would have to go up. But because of our debt service rolling off, basically what we're looking at is, really a net zero for a property tax levy for operations and debt, these two combined. Now, we always have to do our tax increment levy, which is a significant increase, but because we're doing our reevaluation, this is factored into our assessed values now, so we're not seeing that have any sort of impact on our actual tax levy impact on our property taxpayers. Basically, the way it's supposed to work with our tax levy for TIF is that our values go up to match this TIF levy, so there should be no impact. But if our values aren't being, if we're not doing our reassessments, that doesn't happen. That's where you can see that impact happen, which is what was last year. So basically, big picture is with our assessed valuation coming in line with our equalized valuation, that's where you see this 25% decrease in our mill rate. So what does that really mean? And we'll get to that in a little bit. But so I kind of ran through this already, but here's our revenue projections. Biggest change, of course, I talked about was our $130,000 reduction in our non-property tax revenues, which is building inspections, interest, things like that. Our expenditures, again, that's really hard to see. But if you get down to the bottom line of expenditures, we're, out of a $10 million budget, we're up $61,000 in expenditures, about as close to flat as you can really get. But here's the one that we really want to kind of stress is that with our mill rate change, if you have a property value of whatever, if you look on this side, if you say, let's say 350,000. So if you look at a $350,000 value right here, in 2020, your city taxes were $1,900. In 2021, your taxes will be $1,423. You'll have a reduction of $483. If your value doesn't change. I want to stress that if your value doesn't change part, because we are doing a reevaluations. I've got my letter today from Bomar Appraisals. My property value went up 30%. With that 30% increase, I can look at this, basically this chart here. I can say, okay, my value was here, but it went up to here. I can then see what my estimated 2021 city portion of taxes are. And for me, even though my value went up 31%, my actual city portion of property taxes are going up $25. So this is a good way for people to be able to compare. And we know that with this reevaluation happening, there are some property owners, commercial, industrial, and residential, that are going to see a fairly significant increase in their values. Because they probably haven't had an appraisal done on their property by the city in a number of years. And our values have been definitely climbing, as everyone knows. But again, I think this is a good way to do it, is you can take a look at it and say, okay, I had a value of here last year. My new value, when I get this letter in the mail from Bomar, is here. What does that actually mean for my city portion? And you'll be able to tell that. So this is a good way for property owners in the city to be able to do that comparison. Now, everybody needs to understand this is only the city's portion. This doesn't include the school, the county, technical college, anything like that. This is just our part. All that we control is what's on here. So basically, that's kind of where we're at with the budget, proposed levy, tax impact for property payers, things like that. So I guess with that, we're open for questions from the council.
I've got a question. We got our letter from Bomar also today. Mm-hmm. Is that what they estimate the value was on January 1st of this year, or is there a particular date in mind for this?
So basically it's January 1st. So that letter you get's retroactive. It'll go into effect the 1st of this year. Honestly, we wish we would have been doing this in June or July, but because of COVID, it clearly slowed down the finalization of the properties that weren't done yet. So that's why it did get pushed to November to finalize this, but it does reflect the value as of January 1, 2020.
Mm-hmm. Now, property values have increased already this year, from what I understand, but that won't be taken into consideration until a year from now.
Right.
Correct?
So the biggest thing is once we do a full citywide reevaluation, it's much easier for our appraisers to stay on top of it again. It's just when we, as a city, Hudson has experienced really strong growth and really strong value growth over the last, number of years. And when that happens, it's the appraisers, you have to basically do a citywide reevaluation to get on top of it again, which is what the city recognized 3 years ago and started this 3-year process, which is finally wrapping up this year. But moving forward, it should be much easier for them now to keep up with it for a while before we have to do another full reevaluation.
Anybody? Nobody? All right, Aaron, what are you looking for? Looking for final approval here?
Nope, nothing. We'll have the final approval at, I think, Allison, is that right, November 23rd meeting? So we'll have our public hearing on November 23rd. And at that point, the public will be able to weigh in. We have that posted and things like that. So the public will be able to weigh in on the proposed tax levy. Not increase, but just tax levy, since it's going to stay flat. And after that time, after you take public comment on it, that's when we'll ask at that meeting to get approval.
Okay. All right.
So we'll
no
go to the
action
paper with
today.
it.
Pardon me?
So we'll go to the paper. Well, we have to publish it to the paper so that it runs twice before the November 23rd.
So we'll have all this information that you reviewed tonight in that notice about 0% increase and that sort of stuff.
Okay. All right. So no action.
Nope.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Discussion and possible action on diversity and law session.
Staff is just looking for some direction from the council. We were all at the listening session. Staff is, we heard what we heard, and we've tried to do some of our background and try to pull some more information. But to be honest, I think it's easier for us to know what it is as a council you want us to address, you want us to bring back more information on, you want us to do some work on. We don't want to assume anything. And so we want to let the council provide us some direction before we really do anything with it.
I understand that, Aaron, that you and Jeff put together some information and a partial plan. Would you mind sending that out to the council so that we can take a look at it?
Well, really all we kind of did was just pull together general information. It was just kind of like, I know there was concerns brought up about what type of training we do and things like that. So we did, we wanted to pull that together to make sure we had our list of here's the training we do. Here's, these sort of things we do and stuff like that. So it really isn't a plan necessarily. It's more just, we wanted to make sure we had everything kind of based off some of the general things. So honestly, I think it's better if the council gives us some direction. I mean, do you want more information about specific items? Do you want us to come back with ideas or some things to address some issues, versus us kind of guessing what the council wants us to do?
So Aaron, I have two thoughts because this has been milling in my mind as well. So one thought would be, to have us think about maybe setting up I don't know what you would call it, a commission, a task force, something along those lines on trying to, it would be like a diversity task force. It would be a group of diverse citizens from the city that would be able to have some discussions and work as a sounding board to make some recommendations maybe to the council for areas we could improve in. So I don't know the exact name of it, but you kind of understand what I'm saying there?
Yep. And that's what I'm looking for. I can bring back information on something like that. No problem.
And then the second concern is just, I'm not sure the details with our police officers in terms of what they have in terms of training for cultural diversity or de-escalation training. They may already have that, but I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to check with the chief on that.
And that's definitely one that, like I said, we pulled it together, but we wanted to make sure. So I'll have that available for next meeting as well. No problem.
That would be great.
We'll get the whole list out there and we'll get it out publicly as well.
My thought is just to make sure that our police have what they need to do their jobs.
Well, we'll provide detail in the training, and then the council can kind of take a look and make sure that if they feel that way, if they maybe think that there should be some more that we focus on, we can look at that too then. But we'll get you the whole list and kind of details on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a copy of Addison's email, and she asks good questions, and I think that all of those should be answered.
I think, from my perspective anyway, what I'm hearing people are wanting is more transparency when it comes to what it is that we do. Just what is it that our force does? And even maybe beyond, maybe Aaron a look to see, if diversity training for all city staff, are there cities that, might go that route? We just need to be, to make sure that, we're not part of the problem. And I think what I'm hearing anyway is that people want to know what we are doing, and I don't have those answers. So I think the diversity task force is a good idea to look into.
All right, anybody else?
I agree with Sarah. That what I'm hearing is that people want transparency. And I think that because of the Police and Fire Commission, the council doesn't get a lot of information on what's going on. And I think that we need to hear and understand more of what's going on.
And I think I tried to share with some of the council members, I mean, there is a reason we have a Police and Fire Commission. And, part of that reason is to remove some of those police decisions from the council so they're not political. And I mean, this is how the state of Wisconsin operates. This is not something specific to us or something unique that we've done. I mean, this is how it works in the state. And so I will share some more information with the council about that. I think I shared with a few of you who had asked about it just a little bit maybe, but I'll share some more information about the Police and Fire Commission structure in the state. And, I think that helps also explain what the council's role is with the police department. It doesn't mean the council does not have a role. Most definitely it does. I mean, besides the budget and the basics of that, it is policies and those sort of things that the council does have a role in, for sure. So I'll provide more information on what that role is to maybe help structure some of the conversation that the council wants to have too.
Aaron, to clarify, make sure that you go through the Wisconsin statute on what council can and cannot talk to those members about. Because there's some legal stuff there, and Catherine can back me up on that you cannot discuss with police and fire.
Yep, will do.
Can I say something as a citizen?
Who's this?
This is Addison Filiatro.
Yeah, Addison. Go ahead. Wait, can you speak up a little bit?
Yep, I'm sorry. I live at 213 River Street in the city. Just a couple things that thanks for all your listening, and that's pretty much sums up what people want. But with the Police and Fire Commission, I think there's some confusion, at least with community members, about what that role is, because from what I've heard from Aaron, complaints only go to the Police and Fire Commission if there's an appeals process. So it's a little confusing as to what exactly their role is, because like I told you in that email, I'm still unclear as to why there's a claim of no excessive force in newspapers since 2004. Is it because of a specific piece of paperwork not being filed, even though there was a complaint filed directly to the city's insurance and the city, like a letter written and a rise to give notice to. So it's confusing as to why that wasn't listed as excessive force. And then I guess the other thing is since there's COVID, what is the plan for further community engagement with police officers? Because it's really hard. It's hard on everybody, and I think people would like to be engaged more, but what is the plan for that? I'm done.
Is that a question, Addison?
Well, the first part is a question, I guess, I don't understand fully still how there's, in the newspapers, it says that there's a claim of no excessive force since 2004, because I didn't know about that until I talked to people in the community, the one that happened in 2016, because I'd read the newspapers and I guess I don't understand. Is it just a piece of paperwork, even though there was a notice of service given rise to claim filed and letter of complaint that was written to the city and the city's insurance company? Like, what are the metrics for reporting excessive force? Because it is an incident of excessive force. Or I don't understand then, I guess. That needs to be clearer.
Mayor, do you want me to respond or not?
Yes, please.
Okay. The city denies that there was a use of excessive force in that case. And our statement in our insurance's settlement agreement clearly states that. And so I guess anything more than saying that at this point, I think I would have to have some more discussions just because there was a settlement that was reached, but just because there was a lawsuit filed doesn't mean that what was stated occurred. And the city's insurer was very clear in that that there was not something that happened. And so that's why we do not list it, because we did not substantiate that there's a use of force in that situation.
Okay.
Okay, then I guess can the policy be relooked at?
Well, I don't think it's really a policy question. It is. But I think I'm going to talk about this in general. Just because a claim may be made, whether it's a complaint, a lawsuit, whatever, just because that's made doesn't substantiate that that's what's happened. That's what occurred, regardless of what the situation is. Now, if it's found that something did occur, then yes, we would definitely be listing that, and we wouldn't be making the statements that we're making in this case.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anybody else? Okay, moving on. Approve installing mini roundabout islands at 4 locations on 9th Street.
This came out of, hold on there, Dean. This came out of public safety, but there was no recommendation for roundabouts. Let me make that very clear. This, however, there are options that were presented to us. And because Bill was excused from that meeting, it was just Joyce and I. So we wanted to move it on to full council for discussion. I think I made it very clear in the past that I don't favor roundabouts, and I don't believe this 9th Street is the best place for that. Okay, Dean.
Okay, thank you, Randy. So background of this, and I'm sure everybody knows that there on 9th Street between Vine Street and St. Croix Street, there's been citizen concerns and complaints about speeding along that street. The police department did collect speeds at one location along 9th Street, and they showed that over half the people driving on that street were exceeding the speed limit of 25 miles per hour. And so, and also in addition to that, the slower people go, especially in areas where pedestrians are likely to be present, especially like in a residential area like this, the better. Because if a vehicle impacted a pedestrian or a biker or somebody who's moving a lot slower, depending on what speed that vehicle is going, the likelihood of a severe injury or fatality gets exponentially greater the more the vehicle is, the greater the speed the vehicle is going. So you can see in my issue sheet that I kind of have a table in there as various studies have studied this and the relationship between vehicle impact speed and the approximate rate of severe injury and fatality. You can kind of see it's an exponential growth kind of between 20 miles per hour and 40 miles per hour. And there were a decent amount of people along that stretch going 40 plus miles per hour. So if any of those people happen to hit a pedestrian along that stretch, that would not end well, I guess we could say. So we discussed the addition of some multi-way stop signs along that corridor. None of the intersections along the corridor meet warrants for a stop sign according to the MUTCD, which is the federal laws and state laws that we follow for putting signs in and that kind of thing. Is best practices. They've done a lot of research in that. Given that stop signs weren't justified along this corridor, kind of wanted to think a little bit more about some other alternatives we could try along this corridor. And as I was kind of discussing a public safety last time, kind of trying to think of this as like a pilot project and trying out some tools in the potential toolbox for this location or other locations that might have a similar problem or issue that we're trying to address. And so I came up with a few different alternatives, ran them by first Public Works Committee and then Public Safety Committee. The three options that I came up with, and obviously there could be more than three options, but these are the three that I came up with. Option number one would be install temporary speed humps to force people to slow down to about 15 miles per hour at each hump to safely proceed. These would be temporary. They would have to be removed prior to winter time and reinstalled in the spring so that Public Works can plow snow along the street. The cost for those speed humps along this corridor would be about $6,500. Option two would be to install curb extensions and median islands using flexible post delineators, kind of mimicking something called bump outs, which you may be familiar with, and kind of squeezes people down so it's not so much of a racetrack, so to speak, feeling along the street, especially if nobody's parked there. It feels kind of wide open, so people speed more. So it kind of constrains people. It's called passive speed management. It slows people down just because of the constraints there. So there's a diagram of what that might look like at a sample intersection in the issue sheet on page 66 out of 73 of your council agenda has that option two on it. Those delineators would need to be removed prior to winter and reinstalled in the spring, as the case for the speed humps. Approximate cost would be about $3,000 for option two. And option three, it would be to use those delineators and some signing and striping to create mini roundabout islands in a few different locations along the corridor. That would force people to slow down to navigate those islands as well. Using the flex post delineators, obviously those again need to be removed prior to winter and reinstalled in the spring. The signing and striping would continue to be there, so the intersection would continue to function as a roundabout over the winter. The cost for doing that option is about $2,000. So there's no funds currently designated for this work. We'd have to find funding for it. Running it by Public Works Committee, the sense was that option three was the most well-received option, which would be the mini roundabout islands, followed by option two and then option one. And then Public Safety Committee, as Randy was alluding to, talked about it. There was kind of some mixed feelings and there was a council member absent. So that was forwarded on to council by that committee just to forward the discussion along for this alternative or any of these alternatives. Just wanted to point out too that given it's snowing already, we don't think that we would be doing any of this work until the spring at the earliest, because we're approaching plowable snow season, as much as Mike Mraz doesn't want to hear that. So we do have some time to figure this out, but we just wanted to get this in front of City Council, and if whatever option we choose doesn't work for this situation, we can note that, try something else, or try it in a different location. The nice thing about any of these options is that we would purchase something that we could move somewhere else and try something else with it, kind of thing. So we have a little bit of flexibility in that we just have more stuff to be able to do things with later on. So with that, I'd any questions, concerns, thoughts, and then potentially any action tonight. So
I'd like to move to send this back to public safety for further discussion and review.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I got a motion, second, discussion.
I guess my question, just Randy, would be what would come out of that we don't have tonight? Is there something that we would have more information or something?
I think we need more review. The speed limit the average is 24. So I think there needs to be more discussion, and we've got time because none of this works. We have a speed bump policy coming, and that might be an option at some point for that corridor. So I don't want to do a knee-jerk reaction, throw stuff up there, make the wrong decision. Obviously, we have until spring from what it sounds like. But we have a speed bump policy coming, and we can review it then and look at that.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Given Dean's comments about timing, it sounds like a reasonable shot to go back to public safety and take another look at it.
Jim, would you want it back at your committee then?
My reaction would be no, although I think in general our committee does not support speed bumps, but that's the lowest, the last choice of coming out of our committee.
Very good.
Paul, I think it could come back to council at that point. You agree, Paul and Sarah?
Yeah, I would concur, Jim.
I think so. I do want us to do something. You know, when you look at the data, we're looking at, about 1,800 cars within the speed limit out of 4,000. So, I do have I live on a street that also serves as a racetrack, and it's sometimes scary to cross the street. So I would like us to make that commitment to do something about it.
And Dean, are you okay with waiting a little longer to get some more information? Does that throw you guys off, or is that no problem?
No, that's totally fine with us. Because I think it was Jim that was mentioning, it's because of the winter coming, if we wanted to do something yet this year, then I'd say we should probably do something tonight. But given the weather is changing and everything, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Do we think we are going to want some neighborhood review on this? Neighborhood input?
We've had some, but if we came up with a recommendation, we could certainly do that.
At least communicate with them about what we're planning. So, Okay.
Anybody else? I got a quick question for you, Mike Mraz. So
yes, sir.
In all of the cases where you have used the whatever the terminology is, the speed assessment, what percentage of the people are actually doing the speed limit on any given street that you do that?
That would be more of a Chief Willems question, I believe, because he's done a lot of these studies in the past. I'll say that in general, we're seeing higher traffic speeds just in general throughout the city. Like Sarah mentioned, 1st Street, 7th Street, 9th Street, a lot of the corridors people are just driving faster in general. So I don't have a percentage in front of me, Mr. Mayor, but we could certainly collect that data and present that at public safety.
Yeah, I'm just curious to find that out, just to put it into perspective. If 9th Street is any different than Grandview, 1st Street, Carmichael.
I can comment on that if you want.
What's that, Jeff?
I said I can comment on that if you want, just in general.
Yeah.
Generally, the residential streets have a pretty high percentage of speed adherence. When you start getting into the thoroughfares like 9th Street, for example, O'Keefe Road, Stage Line, right? Then you start to get a very high percentage of vehicles that are traveling over the speed limit. You start to get an average speed over the posted speed limit, which indicates
Over the what?
Over the posted speed limit, which indicates that at least half the vehicles are traveling over the posted speed limit, right? It's not like that when you talk about areas like Grandview Drive, generally Laurel Avenue, 17th Street, even the extension of Grandview, East Canyon, West Canyon. It's a much higher percentage of traffic law adherence in those neighborhood areas. But when you're talking about the throughways, the streets that connect one half to the other, right, of the city, there's some speed issues on those for sure.
Cool. All right, appreciate that. All right, so we got a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on Polco inclusion survey.
Well, I brought this to council because I think that it would be very worthwhile for us to do this. Aaron just sent a copy of the survey. I tried to get to see what was actually in the survey this afternoon, and it wasn't available to the general public. So thank you, Aaron, for tracking that down for us.
I just sent it to the whole council. I apologize. I had asked for it sooner, but I didn't. I just got it a little bit ago and just found it in my email. So yeah, just so you can see what the survey is.
And Polco is willing to do this at no charge to us. If we want it analyzed, then we would have to, or do some, if we want them to do some analysis, we would have to pay for that.
But we would get the results for free. So we would get the survey results for free, which we can do with what we want.
Yeah, and Polco is a well-respected company, so I think that it's a good idea to do the survey and get some more information.
If I could, isn't it covered under our current contract with the comp plan? We have.
I don't know if they would do the analysis or not with it, to be honest. I mean, we'll get the results, but for them to actually dig into it or anything, I don't know if they would.
So we have over 900 some subscribers already through the comp plan on Polco. So we already have, every time you post something, it gets blasted out to all those subscribers. So you'll already get a larger volume of recipients of the survey to begin with. So
yeah, then just simply posting it on our website or something. So
yep.
Yeah,
we should get a good interaction if we decide to do it.
Well, good.
Okay. Cool. Any action necessary here?
Only if you're not okay with doing it.
Okay.
I would wonder, how are we going to get it out there? And the 980 is awesome, but other people that aren't.
Yep. We'll do our usual website newsflash, which goes to social media, that sort of thing. We'll ask anybody that's can to please share it with their groups, things like that. So we'll do what we can to try to get out there as much as possible.
Very good.
Can you see that scrolling across a nice message board that we'd have on electronic signs?
Stop.
Huh?
Stop. So
that's part of the point. That's part of the point, isn't it?
I know, but
right outside your office.
It's a good point, but
yeah. Fine with me.
But that being said, it's also good. It also dovetails it nicely. We did post some new comp plan survey questions, and while we're talking about Polco and the questions, this question specifically, please do share that. Go to our website, look at it, and share it with your networks. So that's all I have to add.
Okay. All right. City of Hudson COVID. I'm sorry.
Hi, this is Carrie Rice at 1470 Lee Circle, Hudson. Yep. I just want to say I really appreciate this idea of survey, and I would be happy to promote this, should you decide to go forward, to people both on the Hudson Inclusion Alliance Facebook page and our email. We have over 600 people that follow us on Facebook, so it may result in higher response rate. But thank you for this idea.
Okay, thank you. All right, City of Hudson COVID-19 update.
I did pass along later this afternoon, I think, the latest information from the county. Please note that they had a little disclaimer at the front that the statewide system was apparently down for part of the weekend, so it's not fully up to date, but you do have the updated data that I did share.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I've got nothing for agenda items or any other type of communication at this time. You know what? I shouldn't say that. I do want to add, we're going to be talking again soon about the Golden Rule Initiative. I've made some outreach efforts with some entities and just waiting on some feedback. I actually had a meeting with the Lions Club. That went well. With Rotary, and I'll be talking or talk with Ruth at the Rotary, and I'll be talking with them soon. Then circling back to the library and got some information. Discussing this, have it on future agendas. Anybody else?
Did I just see a child at Mike's camera there?
Yep, time to go to bed.
Past bedtime, Michael.
Then I'll
Yep.
move to adjourn.
Perfect.
Second.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
My doctor called.